5 minutes before top of the hour 9, and we're going to be switching gears now and touching on a topic which is very, very important and one that is affecting millions of South Africans who rely on social grants every month, making the integrity of the system quite critical. But SASSA says some of its own officials have been manipulating the agency's biometric verification system to approve fraudulent grant applications. Now, the agency is taking a much tougher stance, warning that those involved could face criminal charges, dismissal, and even the freezing of the pension benefits as government looks to recover money lost through fraud. The latest move comes just weeks after SASSA revealed that it had really dismissed 3 officials that have been linked to fraud, corruption, and serious maladministration. Dozens more cases still under investigation. And joining us now is Lungelo Kamba, Senior Manager for Communications and Marketing at SASSA Gauteng, to give us more insight on that. Lungelo, good morning. Really appreciate you giving us the time once again.
Good morning to you and all the viewers and listeners. It's very great to be on your show again.
No, pleasure is all ours. And I want to jump right into it. This latest venture to almost clean house when it comes to SASSA, you guys have been describing it as a major crackdown. Can you give our listeners a bit more insight on what prompted SASSA to take such a hard line against corruption at this point, and how widespread has this practice of fraud essentially has been becoming?
Absolutely. Good morning to you and the viewers and the listeners once again. We are taking a very firm stance against fraud and corruption. And as you've rightly indicated, we want to clean up the system because there are very huge financial resources at stake. As you would know, SASSA is paying about 20 billion rand every month on average to about 19 million beneficiaries. So we have a legal obligation and a moral obligation to ensure that every cent and rand that is paid goes to the right person at the right time and place. Now, unfortunately, there have been some fraudulent elements, whether it's done by our staff working in cahoots with members of the public. And what we are saying as SASSA is that we are taking a very hard stance and a firm stance against any fraud or corruption elements. We are working with law enforcement agencies through our risk and compliance unit to root out these fraud elements. And to give you some examples, in the past financial years alone, we have dismissed about 43 officials. Here in Gauteng alone, we recently dismissed about 5 officials. And earlier this year, there were about 2 officials that were arrested. They were immediately suspended. And this shows the seriousness that we are taking this matter. If you are involved in any fraudulent and corrupt elements to defraud the social assistance system, we are going to unleash the full might of the law against you, whether you are one of our staff members or you are a member of the public. We have also introduced various interventions, such as the biometric system. So any beneficiary who comes to our office to apply for a grant must undergo biometric through their fingerprints. Alternatively, we have a facial recognition system. And we are also just reminding our staff that if they try to bypass this system with the intention of defrauding the system, there will be investigations. And if we find any wrongdoing, they will be charged. They will face disciplinary hearing. And where there is criminal elements, those will be reported to the police for the necessary investigations and the National Prosecuting Authority to charge them. And we hope that they would be arrested and face the full might of the law.
I want to touch on that biometric verification system because I think when it was introduced, it was a measure of security, making sure that people that are meant to be receiving grants actually receive them. But it looks like it has been one of the sore points that you guys have been struggling with, where SASSA officials have been bypassing this biometric verification system. How serious is that problem? And what is the modus operandi? Do we have an idea of how they go about it? Because one would think facial recognition is facial recognition and fingerprints are fingerprints.
You are correct, Slylo. Remember, the intention of the biometric system is, for example, even when you visit your bank, you produce your ID, then they scan your fingerprints. It's linked to the Department of Home Affairs database, because we want to make sure that the beneficiary who is presenting themselves, including the ID they are using, is the correct person. However, when the system is at times maybe not fully functioning, there is a measure that we have in order to ensure that there is business continuity. Some of our officials, what we have observed is that they may try and bypass the system. Someone may fail the biometric verification, but maybe an official could bypass the biometric verification with the intention of defrauding the system. And what we are saying is that if you intentionally do this, you try and bypass the system with the sole intention of defrauding us, we are going to charge you, we are going to report you to the police, and the law will take its course. And in some of the past cases where we have seen the dismissals is that some of our officials do work in cahoots with members of the public, where some grant beneficiaries do not qualify, they do not meet the full requirements. However, our officials would bypass those requirements, knowing that it is wrong. Hence, we undertake the investigation, and where we find there is wrongdoing on their part, we make sure that they are charged through the disciplinary processes, they are dismissed, but we also report the case to the police.
There's one thing that was really interesting for me, the fact that SASSA came out and said, officials that are implicated in fraud could ultimately have, not only lose their jobs, but also have their pensions attached. Is this a measure that was, put in place because previous measures didn't seem to be a deterrent? People still continued, to defraud the organization despite the threat of losing their jobs.
Well, that measure has always been there, Slylo. It's something that we have done as well in the past. We are just re-emphasizing it now, that the consequences of trying to defraud us could be as follows. Number one, you will be charged, you could be dismissed, you will lose your job. Number two, we'll report you to the police, you could be arrested, you could be prosecuted, and you could go to jail. We are also working with the National Prosecuting Authority through the Asset Forfeiture Unit. If we discover that some of the proceeds of crime have been utilized to actually purchase assets such as houses or vehicles, we want those to be seized by the state as well. And as you've rightfully indicated as well, we are also going to go to the courts and make sure where we find evidence that you have defrauded the system, we want to recover those funds from your pension through the Government Employees Pension Fund. So there are a lot of consequences that our officials can face. And we are just re-emphasizing and hoping that all these efforts will serve as a deterrent, not only to our officials, but to members of the public as well, who may try and entice our officials that if they defraud the system, they will make a quick buck. I can assure you it is really not worth it, because our systems are very, very strong. We are working with law enforcement, we are working with SARS, we are working with credit bureaus. So please do not try and defraud the agency, because you will face the full might of the law.
There's some beneficiaries and other organizations, that feel that, the tight security measures and the stringent measures that SASSA is putting in place could also make it harder for legitimate applicants to, access their grants, particularly elderly people or those that are living in rural areas. How are you guys balancing security and accessibility?
That is a fair question, and it all starts with education. So before we introduced the biometric, we went on a national communication and marketing drive. We held outreach programs as well in some of the most rural parts of the country, so that we can engage our beneficiaries. We also had stakeholder engagements with some of our critical stakeholders, because we want to work with them. We can't work alone as SASSA. We need our stakeholders. We need our beneficiaries. So before we introduce these measures, we always go on an education, a consultative process, as well as an outreach campaign, so that they know the changes that are coming. We also take their questions and address their concerns, so that once the system is introduced, their concerns are allayed, and any fears that they have are also allayed. But moreover than that, we also go to old age homes, Slayelo, where we do educational drives as well, especially to our senior citizens. We go to radio stations and media partners such as yourself, to make sure that they receive the information firsthand. And yes, we have taken note of the concerns, and I want to stress that the biometric, including the reviews and all these interventions that we have introduced, they are not meant to punish or to frustrate our beneficiaries. It is just an intervention that we are introducing to clean up the system and root out any fraud and potential corruption. Again, we do not want to frustrate any of our beneficiaries. If they have any concerns at any local office, they are entitled to request to speak to a supervisor or the manager of the office. We also do have a toll-free number, which is 0800 60 10 11. So we have introduced those measures not to frustrate our beneficiaries, but just to make sure that we are paying the right person and not allowing the fraud and the corruption elements to go unabated.
And I've just gotten word that you guys are celebrating your 20th anniversary. Just from SASSA's point of view, from your perspective, what does this moment represent, from an organizational point of view, where you've become quite relevant over the years, seeing just how many people are relying on social grants and the increase in the number of offerings that you guys have now. I'm sure it's a very critical moment, 20 years.
Absolutely. It's a very critical moment for us. We encourage our stakeholders, our beneficiaries to commemorate this 20 years. It has not been an easy journey. You would recall 20 years ago, we did not have offices in all provinces. We were paying in hard cash, which was a very difficult process, and a high risk as well, because at times there would be robberies. But you look at the elevation that we have made. We are now paying electronically. We have biometric. We have facial recognition. We are reviewing grants on a monthly basis. And today, we are proud that we are paying about 20 billion rand on a monthly basis. And we are supporting, on average, on a monthly basis, about 19 million beneficiaries. We've also introduced from COVID-19, you would recall at the time, it was known as the COVID-19 350, which has also been increased today to the COVID-19 SRD, which is now paid to 370 rand. And we recognize that SASSA has and continue to be a very critical lifeline in poverty evaluation, in poverty alleviation, as well as fighting hunger for millions of beneficiaries. And we will continue to serve all our beneficiaries with dignity, with honesty, and with pride. And where we have made mistakes and shortcomings, the media has also been there to hold us accountable, and we value the relationship that we have with the media, our beneficiaries, our stakeholders. And we are just happy this year to commemorate our 20 years, and we encourage everyone to join us in this critical milestone as we continue to build an even greater SASSA.
Oh, beautiful. Just before I let you go, beyond corruption officials, and this just for the benefit of those that are listening right now, there are also scams that are targeting SASSA beneficiaries, from fake job adverts to fraudsters that are posing as SASSA employees. For the benefit of our listeners, what are some of the biggest scams people should be aware of right now? And also those that want to get hold of you, whether they have grievances or, they need assistance of any kind, how do they go about it?
Yes, some of the prevalent scams we have seen of late is on social media, where people are using our logo to market fake vacancies. In some cases, they are saying you will receive free groceries. And we as SASSA are saying that all our vacancies are advertised on the official social media platforms of SASSA. Our Facebook page is SASSA News. You can also visit our website, which is sassa.gov.za. That is the only place and official where you can find our vacancies. And where you have any doubt, we would never, as SASSA, ask you for any money to pay for any vacancies. So once someone asks you to pay, you should know immediately that it is potentially a scam and you should run away. If you are uncertain, you can contact our toll-free number, which is 0800 60 10 11. If you are frustrated and you are receiving any poor service at any of our offices in the country, you are more than entitled to request the supervisor of that office or the manager of that office to lodge a formal complaint, which will then be investigated, and the outcome thereof will be communicated to you.
There we go. Lungiel, I'm going to let you go so that you answer that phone call. It might be important. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
My apologies. Please have a lovely day.
No worries. Thank you so much for giving us the time, Lungiel Mkamba, Senior Manager for Communications and Marketing at SASSA Gauteng. Giving us, I think, a bit more insight on how that organization is fighting corruption within some of the officials, man. I think we've all seen the news that have been doing some very, very unsavory activities, trying to bypass the verification processes. And it's quite sad knowing that SASSA is an organization that is mentally exclusively for some of the most vulnerable in our communities and our societies. Children without parents, is the poor of the poor, is the elderly, is the disabled, and people living with special needs, and they're the ones that should be benefiting from this. And when you have people from within the organization defrauding funds that should be going to the most vulnerable, it raises, I think, very, very important questions about morality in this country and where it has gone. And kudos to SASSA, man, for taking a hard stance on this problem. I think they need to continue to do more, especially while they commemorate 20 years. I just got a message here from one of my colleagues, and he says, I remember the days of hard cash where we would take our grannies to the community hall to receive their grant. SASSA has really improved. Well done to them. So, yeah, there are those memories. And now they're speaking of facial biometrics and facial recognition and fingerprints and all of that. I think kudos to them. They're an organization that is increasingly doing better than they have, but where we should, we'll definitely hold them accountable. Going to take a quick break. News and views will continue after this.